Leiman, welcome to my leadership and great entrepreneur kind of series where I interview leaders that I love and that have impacted my life. And today I'm chatting with Leiman, who is the CEO of Nonstop Printing here in Los Angeles. And I work with both Leiman and his dad, Ken, and his mom, Julie, since 2005. So we go way back, and they all hold a very special place in my heart as printing partners too, in the business that I was working in at the time. And even now we stay in touch. So Leiman, after earning a degree from UCLA in economics and working at PepsiCo as a manufacturing team leader, he joined the family business in 2011. But we got to know each other, and he cycled through nearly all the different jobs that encompass Nonstop Printing. And the vision of Nonstop is to help creatives design fearlessly by allowing low minimums while also executing high quality print, which I can second. And outside of work, Leiman enjoys being a Christian, loving his wonderful wife, Carol, and chasing his 3 young children around. So, Leiman, I'm so happy to chat with you about your leadership experience and being a business owner, etc., and the wisdom pearls that you've acquired over the years. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the intro. Wow, that's exactly how I would do it. So, thank you.
Welcome. So if you look at your time here, it's been like 13 years now that you've been in the business. And if you look at your journey as coming into the business, being obviously learning from your dad, but also I know that you had very different management styles and how you want to run business, etc. What would you say have been your biggest learning lessons or insights, over the years as a leader and then stepping in as a CEO of the company?
Yeah, I think maybe because I'm so fresh with it, but learning who I am and who the company is was really huge. I'm in the process of learning. We hear business advice all the time and it talks about like we need to niche down in order to grow. And nonstop printing, and a lot of, especially the mom and pop print shops, we always pride ourselves as generalists and like one-stop shop kind of mentality. And that's what I grew up with. It's what I learned. And I thought it was the way to be successful, but I didn't know why. And for years, I struggled with that, like understanding how to grow. But I think recently I've done the complete opposite where I say no and no a lot more. I look for the clients that we really like to work with. Um, and that in a nutshell is just niching down. It's built clarity. I want to start another brand to niche down even more. So I think that's been the biggest learning. Because in order to grow, you have to simplify things. You have to just know what you're really good at. Our goal is obviously to have every client be thrilled, but let's face it, like we can't be good at everything. We can't even be that good at something. Like we have to be good at a couple things. And as I've done that, I've gotten more and more bold in that. And it's worked, right? Because for the clients that aren't a good fit, they don't get mad because you just say no from the beginning, right? You point them in the right direction. And for the clients that do like it, they love us because we can serve them better, right? And that's actually how clients have a better experience. So one-stop shop is something I grew up with, something that my parents really believe in and still give me that advice to this day. And I kind of joke, it's like, whatever they tell me to do, I kind of do the opposite now because I've just learned who I am and it's kind of working. So why stop?
Yeah, and you ultimately have to do what works best for you. And I know that you've done some big investments in, huge printer, I think, recently as well, and change, like you said, you've been niching down. What would you say that you focus on? I know you focus on printing, books and high-end packaging, right? What would you say are the type of products that you focus on or, really specialize in?
Yeah, it's books. We do event printing and other printing to kind of fill in the gaps.
Mm,
But I would say if there's one thing that we could do, it would be books. And
yeah.
it's funny that it's books, right? I actually think, I think of Jeff Bezos. He started with books, and people joke that he was starting a bookstore. And I feel in a lot of ways the same way here because we love books. But the reason why I love them is because they're in some ways the hardest
Mhm.
and most meaningful product that you can do in print. So it's extraordinarily complex. The stakes are really high, and people expect a lot. Um, so that brings the question: well, what kind of books, right? So it's mostly coffee table books, art books, presentation books. So anything where again the meaning is really high. So think of someone that wanted to create a life book, not a yearbook, like a life book, where he puts all the things that he's done in his life. He does it in 3 volumes. It's got to be hardcover, linen bound with an image stuck to it, foil stamped, right? And it took us like 5 months to get through the files because he wanted to make sure it was perfect, right? And he paid, I don't know, close to 8 grand for 50 books, so really, really high end books. And he needed someone that he could trust. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that got me going. I had a 30-year-old crisis where I had to kind of decide, should we sell the business or should we, should I put my heart into it? And I think I made that deal at that point. It's like, cool, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to stop listening to, a lot of the different voices, including my parents in a way, right? Because they had such a different way of thinking about the business. And it worked for them, right? And that's why I was able to go to UCLA, so I'm extremely thankful for what they did. But if I was going to be in a really difficult industry doing hard things, manufacturing in LA is manufacturing in America is one thing, manufacturing in LA is another, right? It doesn't get a whole lot harder cost wise to do that
Yeah.
than here. Um, so I knew there wasn't a whole lot of immediate money. So I told myself, I'm going to have to have fun. Like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to love it because I know that it's a long road. I knew how hard it was. I'd been in it for 7 years by the time, or I guess 9 years by the time I turned 30. So, wait, that's not true. 2011. Yeah, I guess I was in it for 7 years. And I think by that time I knew this is not easy. Like I'm not going to make a crazy amount of money unless I get lucky or unless I find something viral. But I knew that it was more likely for me to get by than it was to financially like absolutely thrive, So I was like,
And I
I need to
think,
have fun.
and you mentioned that, like, I mean, trust is important. Like I've said to you many times, right? The reason I was a client for so many years was the trust, and I loved interacting not just with your dad, who I spoke with the most, but as you came in, I started talking more with you, and I spoke to Julie, your mom as well. And your entire family is so wonderful, right? So I knew I could trust you. So that's super important. And another point that you were mentioning was, that you had to follow your own vice and your own inner guidance, sorry, because I think we all fall in that trap where we listen to everyone else, and after a while, you lose your own instincts, if you will, and you get into like, am I doing it right or wrong? Instead of just following your vision. And when you follow your vision, it's going to fall in place. And just like you said, it's a long-term game. It doesn't happen overnight with anyone of us creating businesses. It takes a lot of hustle and work and investment and thought, etc. And but your dad and mom started a business where they built these great relationships. So that's a great, heritage to grow on, so to speak. And as technology evolves, I mean, even things like books, where we all often use, Kindle or Audible to, read or listen to books, that becomes a rarity, and then that becomes an exclusivity as fewer and fewer people offer it, right? So
Correct.
then that can become a great niche after a while in itself,
Yeah,
right?
that's what we've found. Like, I think as each year went on, the number of clients that were quote unquote my parents,
Yeah.
right? People like you, like Carlin, like different businesses, it just went down and down and down, right? Because um, as I made decisions, like, yeah, I was the one that was talking to clients. It wasn't him so much anymore, right? I think he was in a time where he was glad to be in production.
Yeah.
You know, didn't feel the need to push. So I think by the time I was 30, I think, yeah, by the time COVID hit, I think, yeah, we could count the clients on that my dad, that I considered my dad's, like started with one hand,
Yeah.
right? So it was very, very much my vision going into it, but I think still had to make a lot of decisions to make them happy, because that's the way it was supposed to be run. Um, but yeah, it was really difficult and it's scary, right? Like there's so many statistics of businesses failing. Like, was it 90% in the first year? Like crazy things like that. So I think I was definitely scared. And luckily, again, I did have this established business. You know, we've been in Hollywood since 1993, right? So we've been around a long time. And I didn't know how to change the brand. Because if you just think of our name, Nonstop Printing, right?
Yeah.
Like we're a quick copy shop, right? Like that's the first thing people think of. So it's like, how do you transform the business into what I wanted it to be? And I think I just made a lot of micro risks, right? Like I just tried this, I tried that. And if it didn't work, it was fine. But I think as I made, you know, I could probably say maybe hundreds or thousands of micro risks of trying to change this and change that, and they worked. I just kept going. And then obviously 5 years later, this business looks nothing like, you know, what it used to with the clients that we serve, with the products that we make. Um, so yeah, I think that that'd be the way that I would approach it again. I think the main thing is, you can probably hear my voice, is like, I wish I did that earlier, right? I think I lived with a lot of fear, wanted to make my parents happy, and do it their way because that was the right way. And I honestly wish I was this bold sooner. I think the sooner it happened, I think it would have been better for our business, because I believe it's gotten more sustainable as I've niched down. You know?
But also that, insights come from, when we try things, right? Wisdom come with age, as the saying goes, right? So
Yeah,
you have to try things out. And it's also a process, I'm sure, when you take over your business from your whoever it is, whether it's your
yeah,
parents or what have you, right? Like they created success in their way, but they started it in a different era with different products, like you said, and you came in with a different vision. So it's also this thing, like, because your business is also heavy investments, right? It's large ticket, big ticket investments. So maybe 5 years ago, you wouldn't have had the guts to do it,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah, and timing's everything. Like, I mean, to this day, I still hear of book companies going out of business,
Yeah.
right? So on one side, it's like, whoa, why are you doing this, right? Um, and on the other hand, obviously, we get some of that supply, right? Because there's less supply, we get some of that. But I do think it's also important to have a true north, right? Um, I like to think of it as like, I have this 80-year plan to do really crazy things, but I have to start with where I'm at, right? And my goal with everything I do is to try to find a way to monetize it and commercialize it, so I can kind of live my dreams and survive at the same time. And
Mhm.
that's always going to be a dance, and timing is everything. Like, I think the timing for what I'm doing right now is actually very good, because for example, with books, that with the advent of AI, there's less people wanting to share their artwork online.
Mhm.
Where are you going to share your art now, right? Books is still a tried and true way. Um, it's not for everyone. They're really expensive, right? Or you got to go overseas, which people have concerns about that now. So the timing of me going into books is lucky in a way, right? Like, I do think there's going to be more art books than ever, because of people trying to make their work more exclusive. They're worried about ChatGPT and Dolly and, Mid Journey scraping their artwork, right? With NFTs, same thing, right? So it's like, yeah, I might just be lucky with the timing, because but I knew it even way in the beginning. I didn't know if this was going to go anywhere or if I would struggle forever. But for me, I think either way, I was like, this is what I'm doing, right? So whether it's good or bad, as long as I can survive, that was literally like, that was it. As long as I survive, like, and I'm having fun, I can do it. Now it'd be nice to thrive financially, but as long as we can survive, Like my employees are going to be happy. I want to be happy. And it's not that I don't look for ways nonstop to make it more sustainable, but I think you have to like wrestle with the reality of your situation. Like I am in a mature industry. It is going down slowly. Like what is the likelihood that I will have some viral story and we are massively successful? The odds are against me, you know? I liken it to like having a, you typically, like when it comes to real estate, the advice is you typically don't want to have the nicest house on a bad block, right? So, for example, even though my business, from the outside especially, we look like we're incredible, amazing, like we're one of the shining stars of our industry,
Uh-huh.
we're still in an industry that's mature, that's shrinking, that's changing, right? Um, so I've wrestled with that reality and I've just accepted it, right? And I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. And I'm always open to change, to pivot, right? Um, and yeah, that's kind of just the tension that you have to live with as a business owner.
I think, though, that as fewer and fewer vendors, as you mentioned, offer book printing, it will, I mean, especially because you can print, even if it costs more, you can still print low quantities with you. And I think that that's one of the good things. I mean, it can be like, parents wanting to do like, like you said, their life's work, a memoir, or, family kind of stuff, family albums, what have you. I mean, I see a lot of opportunities, and I have some of my friends that refuse go electronic. They want to read a physical book. So there's always
Yep.
going to be people that love reading an actual book. So I think it depends on, the age groups. But even if you're grown up with, digital um, consumption, so to speak, reading a book is a special thing. And all it takes is like if someone ever pulls the plug. I mean, of course, you can't print, but at least you would go back to bookbinding the old-fashioned way, I guess. So you'll make it work, and just trust the process, I guess, Lehman. What do you
Yeah,
love about having your own business?
exactly that. I can, excuse my language, I can do whatever the fuck I want,
Yeah.
and that is so liberating. Um, yeah, especially when I actually got to run it.
Hmm.
I'm having so much more fun now. I'm more stressed than ever too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, during COVID, right, I let my parents. That was when we actually transitioned the business pretty much fully because it wasn't safe for them to come in. The business was kind of failing anyways at that time with everything shut down. So I was like, hey, like this is the time. Like I couldn't imagine my parents doubling down and working harder. They didn't really need the business to be honest financially. Like they had enough savings right to relax. So if they
Hmm.
worked hard, it would be because of me. And I was like, what's the point? Let's just make it happen. But I can tell you once it was all up to me. And I think that's my personality.
Yeah.
I think I do the best when it is all up to me. Um, that's when I had the most fun. I got to work. I got to come in as late as I wanted to. I got to work as late as I wanted to. I got to set my own schedule. I got to make my own decisions. I got to do my own tests without having to ask them. Of course, I would still ask them for advice, but again, because our philosophies are so different, um, I, 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 I ask them out of honor and respect, right? Um, and just as another opinion of like, what does the old guard think, right? But the ability to just kind of be set free was amazing. Um, it made it so much more fun for me, and uh, yeah, I got to change the rules. I got to change the values. Yeah, uh, that's it. Like I think I'm just the kind of person that I realize, yeah, I like to do it my way. And I think with not having another person that I had to check with, which is definitely dangerous. Don't get me wrong, like that can definitely lead me down the wrong path. But I think for me, so far, it's worked. Like I have such a strong vision and such a strong way of the way I want to do things that it's better not to dilute them. You know, and I felt like I realized it was diluted.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I'm having more fun than ever, more stress than ever, but there's a lot of special things happening here.
That's wonderful. And So, what would you advise business leaders and business owners, sorry, to prioritize when starting a company?
When starting a company?
We could even because it's in a way it's a restart, right? That you took on. So, like you said, you've learned a lot. So you just look at yourself and your journey in the past
Yeah,
years.
yeah, I think yeah, I feel like it might be a little different from like a pure start, like from nothing to a situation like mine where I had to kind of transform a company, right?
Mm,
Um, but I think the general similarity would be you need to have a true north.
yeah.
You need to know exactly, yeah, who you are, right? And you need to be fully bought into that. Again, when you try to diversify too much, or you try to be, again, too many things to too many people, you just don't have any clarity. It affects your decision making. I made a lot of the wrong investments, 10, 20, 50, $200,000 investments that were wrong because I was trying to be everything to everyone. Where more recently, again, every investment decision is based on a couple of things. One, is it going to make me better with books? That's number one. And then number two is my second dream, which is like, how do I make all things one day? So it's funny. It sounds like that's all things to all people, but I want to actually eventually be like the best prototyper in the world one day, where people can come in with an idea and eventually we make electronic circuit boards, plastics, metals. That's my like 80-year goal, right? So when I'm making decisions, it's starting with books because it's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I see books as essentially my training ground, right? Our
Mhm.
company's training ground to learn how to make hard things and just evolve from there, right? Um, and that's it. So make sure decision making very clear. Like, for example, um, if I wanted to do that and I wanted to be a big printer that was a $30 million printing company, those are like two completely separate paths of what I want to do, right? But when it comes to investment decisions, when it comes to the relationships I want to build, like those are two different paths. But because I've chosen this one path, it's not that like it's always going to stay the same, and I'm always agile with my decision making. Um, but when you have that clarity, like the decisions actually aren't that hard. They're not that logically hard. They might be emotionally hard, but they're logically very easy. Um, yeah. So, and I think that especially in the beginning, like if you're starting a company, I do feel like you have that because you wouldn't start the company if you didn't have some kind of vision, right?
Oh,
I hope,
absolutely.
right? Yeah. Oh, I think the ones that survive again, it's again a lot more than just about the money. Typically, unless
Yeah.
you get a little lucky or because you're in such an emerging industry, like you can just be like okay and start the business, and because it's such a hot industry, it'll just work. That does happen. Um, but I think even for most people, it's the people that have a very clear vision. They can see 10 years out, um, but they'll also slave away in the details to make that 10-year vision happen.
Yeah. So what would you say have been the biggest challenges? You mentioned a couple of them, obviously, that it's a mature industry, ever changing, short, small margins, if you will. But it's still, or would you say because your vision is so clear and strong that whatever challenges you have are, an opportunity in a way to just overcome, or how would you phrase that?
In terms of challenges, I actually think a lot about wages.
Mm,
Um, yeah, like so during COVID, yeah, once it was up to me what to set the prices, the wages and stuff, I like raised them right away, you know, because I felt a constant guilt. Like, how can you survive in Los Angeles, And our wages have improved a lot. They're above market in our industry, but they're still extremely low. Like, you can't survive in LA unless you have help, unless you're living with a family or multiple people living in an apartment. So to me, that's still the ultimate challenge because I'm not paying myself a ton within this
mhm.
business. I'm not paying my people a ton. Um, we're all working really hard, we're all trying super hard. Um, and I actually think in terms of margin, we actually have some of the highest prices in our industry. Like,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, it's not because we're not charging enough. It's because we're trying to find that balance between price, but again, just finding more clients, but finding the right ones, right? So it's such a tricky, complex game. But I would say I have this constant guilt where I want all of us to be making more money, but there's no immediate way to do that. Like if I just raise wages, we'll go out of business. Um, if they stay stagnant, I'm afraid all the hard work that I put into them will be lost. They'll leave for a better job because of the good training that we've had. So I would say that's the number one challenge that I have. Maybe the number one guilt I have. Um, but in terms of how I manage it, it goes back to the true north, right? My whole team knows what my dreams are, right? And how I want to take them with me, right? Like they know how much I make. Uh, they know how much I've raised wages to make it better. Um, they know that I want to keep it going up, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And so I have very much the style of a leader of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know where I want to go. So go on me with this journey where we don't really know where we're all going to land, but you're going to have a lot of fun. And you know that I'm going to really try to take care of you. Um, yeah. So it holds me accountable because and I tell them, like, you'll know when I've gone off the deep end if I go get too selfish, right? Things like that. So tell me, right? And they might not, but I invite that at least. And of course, they'll just look at my actions over time and see what kind of person I've become. Yeah, maybe one day I have too much success and they see that I get super selfish and it does become about the money. That'd be me failing.
And
Um,
because you're so transparent, I don't see that happening because you're having them hold you accountable. And also because it's
yeah.
not you, as we become,
Um,
you know, as we grow our businesses and make more and more money, we just can become more of who we are. And that's when we can truly also make the impact that had us started in the get-go. So
I
you
hope
sound
so.
like, oh,
I hope
absolutely. I
so.
know so. I've known you for 13 years, Leiman. So I
Yeah.
would say that, you've stayed the same. You've just matured as you've gone into your role and as we all do, as we learn the business that we're in, whatever that may be. So you definitely symbolized, I would say, the type of leaders that create success. You have to be heart-based, you have to be a visionary and care about your people because that's how you grow. If you don't care about your people, that's
Totally.
not a good recipe for success, right? Because you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
So, um, so when you build a team, what is it that you look for when you hire people or interview people?
Yeah. I have a maybe a unique strategy. And it might be changing. Uh, so as we work, I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of that. So I have had to let a couple people go recently because again, as I've realized and become less yeah, I'm just like not apologetic anymore about who I need and who we need to be because of all the dreams that we have. So I've had to make tough decisions lately. But my strategy kind of to get to where I was I actually targeted people in retail. So people outside the industry. This was for a couple of reasons. So again, like the print industry is really competitive. We're not the tech sector where we can pay $100,000 a year. We're much lower. I think our average yearly wage right now is probably 52,000 to 55,000 a year. You know, so very much lower. Obviously, retail is much lower than that. Um, and I know that people that work in retail in general have to be of high character because you are treated like garbage from your employers, from people, the people that come into businesses. Like you're treated pretty poorly, and you have to be able to tolerate a lot. Um, and there's obviously a lot of people in retail because it is one of the first jobs. So, um, surprisingly, like the last few years, we would just put posts up on Instagram saying, "Hey, here's the wage. We got 401k benefits. We got health insurance. So we're pretty good as a small company when it comes to benefits compared to maybe others."
Mhm.
And so I put that on Instagram, and a lot of our followers, they love us, right? So they'll share that post, and we've gotten actually the last like 5 hires from Instagram posts. Again, it goes back to True North. It goes back to vision. People know the vision on Instagram. They know that you have this like kind of crazy owner that loves print, that loves books, and likes to nerd out about stuff. And so they're like, cool, I think kind of cool to work for him. Like, so yeah, that's how we've gotten it. And again, most people are from retail because again, if you're making 60 or 70, you're not going to typically go down. We actually have had a couple people that we've had one of our employees, Lulu, she was a nurse assistant making far more, right? But she really wanted to get out of the industry, and she's like, hey, I know this is a lot lower, especially at the time when she first started, but wanted to work at a place where it was just a better work environment. So
Mm.
yeah, so we have actually had another thing. We've had a couple people that have made more in the past that would come here. I think because they just saw the energy, they wanted to make things with their hands again. So. But in general, that's been my strategy with kind of the success that we've had and the kind of clients that we work with now. I think the strategy will be the same. I think we just now know more what to look for in an employee. Um, the way that I describe it now is we need to look for people within each role for very core characteristics. Like, I don't want to even give it away so that people interviewing will know what I'm going to ask them. But
No, no,
I think the
no. But you
general
have,
aspect is like,
yeah.
yeah, I think the general aspect though is like, we need to find people within specific roles that will do those things in their sleep. Like it needs to be in your nature to be a
Yeah.
certain way.
Yeah.
So if you do handwork, like it needs to be in your nature to do certain things. If you're doing customer service, it has to be in your nature. Like there's a lot of things I can't coach,
That brings me into
yeah,
Clifton Strengths, which I know is one of the assessments that you've taken. And that and many others. I mean, like that's where they can kind of that's where you can that's one way, even if it's not an aptitude test, like Clifton Strengths in particular, it's your innate talents, how you approach everything. So let's say if you want someone that is detail oriented, there's certain themes that will give you guidance, right? But
yeah,
there's many other obviously assessments that also have the aptitude piece, if you will, but it's still a guide because how we do everything, if you are a super focused person who's very analytical and precise, if you will, right? There's certain roles that you will be better at. And if you're a
yeah,
blabbermouth, go into sales or marketing or speaking, right? I mean, and those are just basic top level things. And it doesn't mean that you can't do other things because we're all, a unique blend of things. I know we're getting towards the end here, so I just wanted to check in, have some personal reflection kind of questions here. What's something you can't live without?
yeah. For me, my life is very simple.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, at all times, if you call me, I'll be doing one of these three things. Um, Work, I love nonstop, and family, and obviously faith, right? I think exercise is another key piece. As I get older, I'm like, oh, it's really important to like take care of your body. So maybe those four things, and that's it. Um, so yeah, and I see them as like pillars, right? Um, I'm not gonna lie. There's times where I'm like, man, I wish I could work more because I think the business might go farther, and I had to make a decision to let the business go slower than I want because I hear people all the time that are older say, I wish I enjoyed the young kid days more, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and for me and my dad, I really don't know like, I really didn't know my dad a whole lot as a kid because he was always working. And again, he had to do that for the most part because they had to survive,
Yeah.
right? They were the classic immigrant story from rags to riches, right? Um, so like, yeah, so I think they had to do that at that time. Um, for me, there was a cost though, right? Not really knowing my dad, my mom being, stressed all the time. We were in daycare a lot and stuff, right? So I think that was just a really critical thing for me. Um, so yeah, um, I'm at my best when, yeah, I have that balance between the two. I think when the kids are college age, I think that might be my working prime, I like to call it, um, because I'm going to have to figure out how to make more money. um, but yeah, that's kind of it. So I think it's those four things. And if you take any one of those things out, I think my life crumbles.
Yeah.
If I stop exercising, I feel terrible. It's mentally too. If you take away my family, it's kind of like, what's the point? Like, if you take away work, I love to work. And I don't think I could just be at home, honestly, yeah. And with faith, the huge vision that I have and why I'm willing to take the slow road and why I do feel that guilt about wages and stuff. I think it's because of my faith. It's like, I want when I go, when I die, yeah, I want when I see God, I hope he says like, good job, good job, well, and a good and faithful servant, right? Like you made a lot of mistakes, but man, I saw what you tried to do. I saw that you didn't just go for this or that. You really tried to honor me through the way that you lived.
Yeah, and you make the best decisions you can with the awareness or knowledge you have at any given point, and that's all you can do. So all is well, so to speak. What would you say if you could give everyone around the world a message they would have to hear?
Same thing in the beginning, like, oh, this is kind of good, especially for business or even for artists. And I got this from someone else, but I've been saying it a lot. I don't remember his name. I need to find it, but he said, in order to be successful in art, maybe financially, or to have a career in art, you need to have these three things. And it's not particularly in this order.
Mhm.
And that makes me a little sad, but it's just the reality. Number one, have a voice,
Mm.
know who you are, have something unique that you're bringing to the world, right? It has to be uniquely you. Don't copy others. It's got to be you, right? And you have to find that. And there's a lot of work to do that. So that's the most important thing. Number two, network. You got to go out. You got to make connection. There's going to be things that you don't want to do. And this is obviously in the context of artists, where usually it's the least favorite thing for an artist. But you got to network. You got to get your name out there. And obviously that applies to business too. Because a lot of times I like to isolate and just work on my cool stuff. And number three, have good art.
Mm.
Right. And it's the
Yeah.
funniest because most people, right, and you hear this all the time on LinkedIn, right? Feels like you can't be a perfectionist. You just got to go out and do that. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like the people, and I think the cool thing about working at Nonstop is when you work here and you work with a lot of artists, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's like okay,
Yeah.
it's not the best, but the difference between the people that are again successful and people that maybe not, the people that are not never even give themselves a shot, right? And that's why I love how number three is have good art. Like stop judging yourself, just go,
Yeah.
right? Have something unique, right? Because that is what gets the attention. That is what people are actually looking for, right? Having technically good art or a technically good business, no matter how good I print, I don't know, it's not a differentiator. at the end of the day, right? But I think when clients work with us, it's because they like my energy. They like how obsessive I am. They like that, I'm transparent with all that stuff, right? They like that I will point them in the right direction if we're not a good fit, right? Because they know how much I put into it and they respect that. So yeah, that's probably it. It's that was a three-part message, but it is something I reflect on a lot right now because I see so much truth in it.
I love it. And thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, Leiman. I really appreciate you taking time out of your super busy day because I know you have some jobs waiting for you. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing this. And I see you being very successful because, like you said, who you are is what it all comes down to. And you're being yourself as a leader and inspiring others. And you're a super positive, smart guy filled with ideas. I know that, and creative yourself. So it's gonna boom more and more, especially as you've niched down so much. And there's so many possibilities with that too, and what you can do. So you can create anything. So, and everyone out there, if you want to get in touch with Leiman, you get in touch with him by going to nonstopprinting.com or the Nonstop Printing LA, I believe it is, at the
Yeah,
handle on
Instagram.
Instagram, right?
Yeah,
And
I would say that's the best place to start. Yep.
anything else you want to add before we go?
Yeah, I think that's it. Like, I'm really excited for everyone here in 2024. I know it wasn't an easy year for a lot of people, 2023. So yeah, I'm excited for everybody. Just keep at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.